Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Michael Perrier from the Reapit sales team, and I've got Michael Scaramanzo from Campaign Flow. From Real Flow, and we're here to talk about their product Campaign Flow today. Thanks for joining me,
Mike. How are you?
Good. So I guess with today's session, I wanted to give everyone that's joined us a bit of insight into how Campaign Flow can help, especially around the conversations with vendor paid advertising. When we talk about cash flow in real estate, what does that really mean for an agency day to day?
Mate, there's a lot of pain points and pressures from an agency day to day. You know, if you're the agent or you're the principal, I sort of break it up into two parts. The principal's all about, margin and keeping cash flow afloat because they are under a lot of pressure. And when you actually have a look at the pressures that a principal faces day to day, it's recruitment, it's retention of staff, it's the, market cycles, it's the profit that they make from a challenging marketplace with pressures on commissions from both sales and also managements. It's the lack of scalability when it comes to training, development, and incentives for the team. And actually, when you look at these pressures of margins, Macquarie actually has got a good stat out there for real estate where it's like the main pressures principals are after, Michael, is that 62% of all their expenses predominantly are towards salaries and commissions. And it's nearly 49 to 50% of their actual revenue.
Yeah, wow. Okay. I don't think most people would realize that it's that high. I think, so would you say that it's not necessarily, the cash flow is not mainly the principal's problem, but it does affect the whole team?
100%, because, that's from a principal lens. But then you think about it from a salesperson's lens. If they're on either a debit credit scenario or they're a contractor or they're commission only staff, they've got very similar, challenges to, comprehend. So that's like time on market. By the time they list, market, sell a property, you're talking 14 to 16 weeks before they get paid.
Yeah,
so
wow. That's a good point.
If they don't have a solution in place to keep up with their day-to-day cost of living parameters, from paying bills, paying school fees, paying mortgages, the day-to-day things that we all have as normal individuals, and then also building and promoting their own, EBUs. If they don't plan it right, they don't have a business plan, they don't have a strategy, cash flow becomes a big problem for them as well.
So I guess what would you say is the biggest cash flow pressures that a principal's seeing at the moment?
Look, I reckon from a principal point of view, it's just, it's like any business. If it's not just real estate, you talk to any business out there. I've got friends that are in building, landscaping, retail, food, and many in real estate. They're all doing it tough. Just to keep your doors open these days is not easy as a business owner. But when you've got so many pressures like I highlighted, when that 62% is going towards, wages and commissions, not including everything else you need just to keep your doors open, there's a lot of pressure on that, and margins are being really affected in the industry. I think if principals are these days walking away with any between 8 to 12% profit margin, it's probably not too bad. And there's not many that are pushing north of 15%.
Yeah, fair. No, it's interesting. I mean, so I guess in then saying that, having to then cover the marketing costs up front and then waiting those weeks, months to see those returns can really be affecting their growth, would you say?
100%. When you actually have a look at the impact that it has on a office today, let's look at a small office. Let's say there's an office that does 3 to 5 deals a month, and they're carrying in between, $5,000 to $7,000 on average from a marketing campaign. That's nearly what, $15,000 to $20,000 a month that they're carrying just on marketing, and they're having to wait nearly 14 to 16 weeks to get paid.
Yeah, and I guess that would then flow down to the agents and waiting on their
100%.
commission.
It really becomes, they really become, more stressed in their business. They get into survival mode. And like any business owner, right?
Yeah.
And we're talking about real estate here. When you're in survival mode as a business owner, you've got to think about the people around you. How does your personality then affect your team? How does that stress affect the way that you position and walk in the door every morning as an owner? How does it affect culture, growth, strategies, development, training that all your staff want? So if you're not walking in positive attitude and you've got, a good vision that everybody's on board and you've got cash flow solutions, it's going to really free up anything that you need to do to support your team and support your business to grow. It's going to be challenging.
Especially with the stresses of trying to cover those costs or carry those costs, when settlements draw out or drag out, I should say. If the campaign stalls, they're covering that for that little bit longer. If they've popped it on the credit card, they're stressing about the interest they're going to pay on that.
100%. And when you actually have a look at, solutions that are out there, and I always look at it being a tech guy, is the fact that, tech's supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be, supporting the business, promoting a good workflow, and just making it fast and simple for everybody to use. That's, from an agency point of view to also the consumer. And if you can get that right, and especially with solutions that are out there like we have with Campaign Flow, you're actually giving that control back to the vendor. When it does come to marketing, you can actually put forward the best strategy to get the best eyeballs on their property. And this is where the industry sometimes struggles, where yes, it's so competitive out there. And do you have to, meet the Joneses as an analogy? If this person over there is charging $3,000 in marketing just to make it as lean as possible, even sometimes carrying it themselves, does that mean that you have to do the same? I always value throw yourself out there with merit, believe in yourself, be comfortable in your skin, and promote the best marketing solution that you see fit and relevant for that property that you're actually selling or you're trying to win the listing on. And then give vendors the choice. And it's not just about marketing, it's also about the property presentation. How do you actually get the home to present itself in its best light?
You're not wrong. I guess you look at it, you get one shot to make that impression on buyers that are out there in the market over all the other stock that we see available now. Speaking from the vendor side of things, what kind of hurdles are you facing, or what are they facing when they come to comparing marketing their property? So do you see that conversation, I guess, when they're in the living room? It's a bit of a tricky conversation to say, look, we need to spend X amount of dollars to market this property. And it's quite a substantial amount up front.
Yeah, when you actually have a look at, I've sold a few homes, and anyone that has will know this experience, right? It's not just the agent's commission that you've got to look at. It's getting the property market ready. It's the upfront costs that you need to get the property, ready for sale. So that's legal costs, solicitors' costs, anything else that needs to be done prior to getting the property ready. And then it's the cost that comes after the actual sale. You've got the commission, you've got the legal costs, you've got the stamp duty for the next property you buy, there's moving costs, there could be tax implications. Like, there's a lot of different unknowns for every individual.
A lot of moving parts to manage there.
100%, right? So a lot of these vendors that are coming to market and interviewing, because that's what's going on, they're interviewing the agent. Who's going to be the best person to promote their property, build the best rapport with them, and achieve the best price when it comes to selling that property. And if the agent builds that rapport and really backs themselves, has the best strategy on what they think is going to be the best way to get that optimal price, it gives them a better shot of winning that deal and that listing. And then that comes to two things within that listing presentation. You've got to cover off the marketing, how easy it is, where there could be no upfront cost, and giving control back to the vendor and letting them decide, do they want to pay upfront? Do they want to pay at settlement? And that's the beauty about services and tech like ours at Campaign Flow, where the vendor's in control. They don't need to make an awkward conversation more difficult in the living room with the vendor as an agent.
Yeah.
Let the vendor decide how they want to implement those strategies that the agent's talking to them about. If it is styling, decluttering, just presenting the home in a better fashion, in a better light, but also making sure that they're getting that property in front of as many eyeballs as possible, and don't skimp on that.
Mm. Well, would you say you're seeing a lot more vendors being open to a solution like Campaign Flow?
100%. I mean, the good thing about the service that we offer is that it's a next step conversation in the living room for the agents.
Yeah.
So, once you've gone through your strategy and again talking about that marketing strategy, that getting that property ready for sale, it's a next step conversation. Once you've won that listing and you're getting that, signature on a digital form, it's that next step. Next step, Mr. Vendor, we're going to send you a payment link and you decide. You don't have to tell me right now, but you can decide. You can either pay for it now, you can pay for it at settlement within 180 days for a small fee of 6.9%.
Mm.
So if a vendor, you look at a vendor's situation, the majority of people's situation today, we're asset rich, cash poor.
Yeah.
So look at the scenario. If you've got 10 or 15,000 or 20,000 in the bank, do you want to part with 5 or 10 to pay for your
No.
marketing?
Yeah.
Or
No.
would you rather just leave that there and pay a small little $350 fee at the end and you don't feel it, and that comes out of your settlement fund?
It's really taking the stress out of the situation, isn't it, for that vendor?
100%. And not only that, I mean, agents love, a seamless workflow. And then
Mm.
when you tie that into, well, what happens once they actually send them the link? Well, this is where tech and the power of tech and the pipes connecting with one another is
Yeah.
powerful, right? So they've got their, Reapit sales agent box CRM. They come in there, they know everything about the property. They've got in an appraisal. By a push of the button and completing that, it goes straight to listing, draws out all that information, creates that payment link within Campaign Flow, and
Mm.
within 30 seconds, that link goes straight out to the vendor. And again, they are in control of how they want to pay for that marketing. And the stat that we find across our business is that about 40 to 45% of people, when you actually give them the choice, pay later.
Yeah. Right. That's
So,
interesting. I mean,
50
it
to
makes
55
sense.
will pay up front. They'll pay by credit card or pay by EFT. But the beauty about it, Michael, is that they're in control. There's no friction in the living room with the agent where they're eyeballing one another and saying, well, yep, we can't get started until you pay the marketing. How do you want to pay, Mr. Vendor?
Yeah.
You don't have
And
to worry about that friction anymore with the service that we provide.
it makes it makes that conversation, like, I guess, a lot less awkward in the living room to get these marketing packages signed up and signed off on. The integration, you say, you've seen key agents that are on the platform help that conversation progress.
100%, mate. Because again, the benefit or the challenge that we solve for an agency is a few things, right?
Yeah.
One, we're freeing up that cash flow for the principal. A lot of principals now are telling agents, if you don't get that marketing in, we don't start the marketing of that property. So the agents are under a bit more pressure now that they've got to get that marketing dollar in before the property even gets started or gets, online.
And that, I guess, that really kind of triggered me to think back to our conversation from a couple of weeks ago, where having those marketing funds available or not having to have those parked, they can start to really reinvest their commission back into their own personal branded marketing and things like that for the business.
100%. There's a service that we have for agents, which is called Commission Flow, right? So again, like I sort of mentioned to you earlier, when agents are running their business and their EBU and they're
Mm.
sort of not getting paid for 12 to 16 weeks, they've got to really have a plan and a strategy of, well, what's going to keep them afloat? And when you listen to all the big trainers that are out there, all the awesome trainers that we have in our space, they'll always advise agents to reinvest 3, 5, 7% of their earnings back into training, development, and marketing.
Yeah.
So there are solutions out there where they can advance their commission for a small fee, but keep their EBU running. Don't put the handbrake on and off and start and stop. You've got to have a presence in the market. You want to make sure in your postcode, that you're dominant, that when someone is thinking of making a move, that you are one of those people they are going to interview. And the way to really do that is to promote yourself. Is that through we all know I'm not going to be a sales coach and trainer here, but if that's through
Yeah.
letterbox dropping or, social posts or the phone calls and so many other different ways you can market yourself, you've got to keep your foot on the pedal. Real estate's a long game. So the more presence you can have in there and the more you can really get your capital working for you, the
Yeah.
better position you're going to be in comparison to your competitors.
It's a no-brainer, right? It makes complete sense. You're taking the stress out of that situation completely.
And then you flip it on the other side when it comes to tech, right? What are the benefits of using the tech in an agency? It's all about workflow and efficiencies.
100%. Yeah.
So the less duplication we can make for teams, and
Mm.
that's why I love the partnership that we have with Reapit and Agent Box, is that you're already in a place where you've created and you've got all that information of the property. And then that next step conversation from winning the listing, you come back into the office. If you do it yourself as an agent, or you hand it back to an associate or a coordinator or an office manager, within a
Yeah.
few seconds, that link has gone to the vendor. They've got a live portal. The agency's got a live portal to check the status in real time of where that payment is, and the vendor sitting back in their living room deciding how they want to pay with no friction, no pressure, no awkward conversation.
It just makes you look that much more professional too by having that efficiency, and
100%. And it's
yeah.
also the follow up, right? So
Mm.
you're not there, oh, when's this money coming in? What's going on with the payment? Yes, you're having that, but it's to a lesser degree because the platform can send soft reminders.
Yeah, I like that. That's really
Right?
nice. Yeah.
So you're not really putting the pressure and bugging and, frustrating the vendor by continually calling. You can
Yeah.
let the platform make those subtle reminders to them.
Yeah. And you can just focus on doing your job, which is obviously selling that house.
Rinse and repeating, mate.
Yeah.
Prospecting, marketing, and finding the next deal and obviously putting the deal you have away, every single day. So you focus on just keep growing and scaling the business.
So look, I know we're kind of getting to the end of our time, and I wanted to get to some questions at the end, if we can. But what would you say the biggest takeaway from today's session around, discussion or having discussions around managing money smarter within their business?
Look, I think that the biggest thing that has to change is a change of mindset from the principals in an office. What you did
Mm.
yesterday does not have to be the same to what you're doing today. There are solutions out there, right? And they've got to start thinking about, what does the future look like for their business and their EBU? And how can they be better at pulling out the best margin and profit in their business? And then utilizing that to grow and scale their business, but also bringing your team along that journey with you. So again, I think it was what I said earlier. Don't play survival mode when things are tough as a principal. You're a leader. You're a leader of a business. Bring your people on board the journey and look at the ways that you can better improve that. And if that's from recruitment to training to development to incentives, and even just reward and recognitions. Like, just think about different ways that you can bring your people on board the journey
Yeah.
and don't tie up any money in marketing that you don't need to anymore, because there are solutions like campaign flow that are available there for you to ease that pressure. And the
Mm.
question I always say to principals, and if you're a principal, I'd say, Mike, if you've got 20 grand sitting there or 30, or I've seen offices that have got $300,000-400,000 tied up in marketing, I ask them the question, what would you do if I can free that up for you?
Yeah.
What does your life look like from a personal and business perspective when you've actually got 30 or $100,000 of cash flow freed up for you?
It changes changes the narrative, doesn't it, on business growth and where you can take that.
100%. If the market's getting more competitive every day, right? There's a
Mm.
lot more pressures in the market. Like I said earlier, it's not just commission pressures, but it's just cost of service, cost of operating services that are out there.
Yeah.
When you've got solutions like ours in the marketplace, it can actually just support you in a different way.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the take is for me today to explain to principals and operations people out there is take a step out and look back in and say, where can you make improvements and can these improvements be quickly and easily made in your business to further help you grow and scale to get to a place you want to be and be happy at.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I mean, as you're getting in and starting out a business, you start to grow, and some of the times these things are pushed to the side and forgotten about. But taking that step back and readjusting can make a big difference.
They're all in survival mode, Michael. They've got to change that. How do I get out of that mode? And
Yeah.
how do I just move to the next level?
No, I appreciate that. It's great to catch up with you again. I think we've got a couple of questions come through on the chat. Sorry, I did forget to call that out at the beginning, but Michael, I hope we just run through those. Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
not sure if you can see those there, but we've got one that says, what's the difference between, say, a bank loan for a vendor marketing versus campaign flow? Are there savings to be had to make it worthwhile for them, or?
Yeah, 100%. Sorry, I can't see the chat, but I'll go by the question that you've just asked me,
Yeah,
mate.
sorry. Yep.
Okay, so what's the point of difference? When you walk into a bank and you want to get, $10,000 or $15,000 for whatever purposes that it is, there's two ways you do it. You put on your credit card and you're paying 17, 18%, interest every 30 days if you're not making contributions to that. So it
Yep.
gets expensive. Or you go in and you get a personal loan. And then by getting a personal loan, you've got to fill in a 15-page loan application. They want to tell you everything about you, or they want to know everything about your life. And then it'll take you a few weeks before you actually get that payment landed once approved in your bank account.
Yeah.
With a service like Campaign Flow, it's a one-off 6.9% flat fee, and
Hmm.
you can actually borrow up to $50,000 capped at 3% of the property value. We're a low doc service, so we don't require a lot of information for that approval. And once it's approved, it's literally transferred to your account within 12 to 24 hours. So, how that works is the agent gets their marketing funds straight into their trust account, and any additional funds that the vendor has requested on the application go straight to the vendor's account.
No, I guess we've kind of answered it, but with the pay, does the pay later option come with interest? There was the second question. I think there's a
It
couple other
does.
ones
So
there too.
if a vendor decides to pay up front, there's no cost at all.
Yep.
They can pay that through EFT or credit card. The only fee they'll incur is the merchant fee that the banks will charge, which sits at about 1.5%. And again, if they defer payment, it's just a 6.9% payable within 180 days, which is 6 months. Or if they withdraw the property or its settlement, whichever one comes first. So
Yeah.
if you have a look at an average, let's say $5,000 marketing campaign at 6.9%, the vendor will pay $345 at settlement.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. I think the only other one we've had so far come through, which I'll grab now, is I just checked. Yep. So we kind of answered this already with the approval process. How long does that normally take? I know we said it's about 48 hours up to get paid.
Yeah, so basically, approval's a lot quicker than that sort of time frame. So what happens is if you're through Agent Box sending the payment link to the vendor, it'll
Yep.
literally take you 30 seconds to get that payment link out. So
Yeah.
there are
Okay.
two ways that we can actually do that through the CRM.
Yep.
You can either automatically send it out or create the draft, come back into our portal, check it, and send it through the portal. Once the vendor gets it on their end, there's only a few things that they need to do, and it probably only takes them about 60 to 90 seconds to actually go through the application. The first thing we do is we verify them through either a passport or a driver's license number, nothing they need to upload or scan.
Yep.
We ask them the question, do they want to borrow additional funds? If so, yes, how much? We do ask them if they do have a conveyancer, because we do find that nearly 50 to 60% of people that come to market haven't got a conveyancer available.
Yeah.
So, we've actually recently launched Real Flow Conveyancing that's powered by Settle Easy. And what that enables us to do is if the vendor does want conveyancing or support around getting that contract to market, that's another service that we can get in there to support them with. Again, the
Yep.
faster we can get that contract to the vendor and those funds to the agent, the quicker the property gets marketed. And then basically once the vendor does that 60 to 90-second application, it'll go back into our applications team. They'll turn that around circa 1 to 2 hours and then send the loan document back to the vendor for signature. Once that's done, again, the money's transferred within 12 to 24 hours.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, just quite a quick turnaround. Sorry. So it sounds like this was a two-part question. It sounds like we've answered it anyway, but so it's not difficult for older clients to get through.
Not at all.
Not
And
at
the
all.
beauty
Yeah,
about us is the fact that we've got an awesome customer support team. You know, they can call our 1300 number. There is flexibility with the elderly that we deal with day to day. Our team can hold their hand via a phone call and take them through the steps. We also provide them an opportunity if they need assistance with, everyone does need a digital footprint these days, so you do need an email. But if you can use your son, you can use your daughter, you can use a friend. Like if there's someone around you in your circle that can support you with just getting that correspondence and information, that is totally flexible. And again, we've got a great team that will just help those people that are not internet savvy and a little bit, elderly that don't understand how the email works. But we don't just do email. We do email and SMS. So if they've got a phone, they've got a digital footprint, we can support them that way.
Yeah, no, perfect. I think so. Just to clarify too, we've had another question come through off the base of that one. The money that comes through, does that go into the vendor's account or is that straight into the agent's trust account? Or
Yeah, so we break it up into two paths. So the money for the marketing normally goes into the agent's account, and then any additional funds will go to the vendor. So that's the way that we like to structure it. But there could be scenarios, and this is where our platform provides flexibility. There could be scenarios where the agent wants to manage the works. So if that's the case, the agent can put in the marketing plus those additional works. It might just be styling. So the agent might do marketing and styling as a scenario, and then vendor can borrow additional funds to get the home market ready. In some cases, not many, the agent also does those works on behalf of the vendor, so they can apply for the full fund, but that doesn't change the application process. We still go through the same detail of process, and then on approval, those funds can all be transferred to the agent if that's the case.
That makes sense. And very relevant questions come through with the conveyancing services you mentioned earlier. Do the agents get a referral for using your conveyancer is the question.
They do. So as part of RealFlow Conveyancing, which is powered by Settle Easy, it's a national online conveyancing brand. And by state, we do have a referral fee that gets paid back to the agency. So definitely, please do reach out. More than happy to take them through that detail. And every state's got a different referral fee. But yes, we do reward the agents that promote and refer their customers back to RealFlow Conveyancing.
Perfect. No, thank you. I think so. It does definitely sounds to me that efficiency from having Reapit sales and flowing into campaign flow is key there. But I don't think we've got any other questions come through on the chat or in the Q&A. But after today's session, we'll share the recording. We'll be sending that out, but we'll also include all of our details. So if there are any other questions, please feel free to reach out. And thanks for joining me today, Michael. I appreciate the catch up and your time. But if there's nothing else there, we'll wrap up the session for today, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thanks very much, Michael. It's been a pleasure.
No, appreciate it.
Have a great day.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
See ya.